It turns out not only is Trump an idiot, he was also surrounded by idiots. One advisor to the Trump administration discussed the idea of herd immunity. Pushed this idea out there that if we just infect people, then this is how we actually bring the numbers down. So this headline here from Politico: "We want them infected. Trump appointee demanded herd immunity strategy, emails reveal." Then HHS science advisor Paul Alexander called for millions of Americans to be infected as means of fighting COVID-19. Now, before I get to the specific quotes from this genius, let me first show you where the numbers are at. This is the daily new confirmed COVID-19 cases per million people, shown as a rolling 7-day average here. So you take a look at the U.S. compared to other countries. I mean, if you're paying any attention at all, you already know this, that the U.S. is performing much worse than anybody else. But here's the proof for you. U.S. right here, never got out of the first wave. They're into like kind of a fourth wave now after seeing a dip from the third wave. Meanwhile, the U.K., everyone else is experiencing at least a second wave, but except for, Australia, Vietnam, Cuba, good countries, but or Japan. But Canada, Germany, the UK are all seeing a second wave, but it's nowhere near where the US is right now. I mean, people have really appeared to just gotten used to it and are letting their guard down, and because they've been in a pandemic for so long, they're not as cautious as maybe they once were when the numbers were way down, like over here. But that's the result of it. And of course, it's not the fault of the population. It's the fault of lawmakers. It's the fault of not actually giving people real financial help during this pandemic to encourage them to be able to stay home. So because there is no real financial help, like in other countries where they're getting either a universal basic income or a wage subsidy, Americans are forced to go out and try and make money to survive. And this is the result of that. But I want to get to some quotes because clearly, the Trump administration didn't necessarily push herd immunity, but they didn't do a whole lot. So you can argue, in lieu of them actually helping people, they sort of did push herd immunity. And here are some quotes from one of the people in the administration that was pushing this. Quote, "Infants, kids, teens, young people, young adults, middle-aged with no conditions, etc., have zero to little risk. So we use them to develop herd. We want them infected," Alexander added. "It may be that it will be the best if we open up and flood the zone and let the kids and young folk get infected in order to get natural immunity, natural exposure," Alexander wrote on July 24th to Food and Drug Administration Commissioner Stephen Hahn, Caputo, and 8 other senior officials. Caputo subsequently asked Alexander to research the idea, according to emails obtained by the House Oversight Committee Select Subcommittee on Coronavirus. Alexander also argued that colleges should stay open to allow COVID-19 infections to spread, lamenting in a July 27th email to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director Robert Redfield that, quote, "We essentially took off the battlefield the most potent weapon we had, younger healthy people, children, teens, young people who we needed to fastly infect themselves, spread it around, develop immunity, and help stop the spread." This, of course, is completely deranged. This guy is apparently a doctor. Apparently he's supposed to have some background in science. But if you actually look at the data, if you didn't already know, and there's countless stories about this, young people are at risk of severe COVID-19 illness. Of course, the CDC finds that coronavirus infections are now highest among young adults ages 20 to 29, who accounted for more than 20% of all confirmed cases from June to August. So obviously, young people can get really sick, and there are countless stories around this. One example, as far as a high-profile example, Jeremiah, who's a R&B singer, suffered organ failure, memory loss, and had to learn to walk again after a battle with COVID-19. And there are countless stories like this. The idea that you could just infect young people and they'll be fine, and that will somehow stop the spread, as opposed to recognizing that if young people get it, even if you have that approach, even if you think, oh, if young people get it, they're going to be fine. Even if you think that, don't these young people come into contact with older people that maybe are a little more inclined to get a lot more sick? Even his own thought process here, even his own thinking in that arguing to get young people sick or getting young people to get the virus will somehow stop the spread. How does he not recognize that those same young people can infect people that are not young? It really is incredible. The kinds of people that are put into positions of power and are able to get through life like being this stupid. It's remarkable. Now, I also want to show you the long-term health effects of COVID-19, as there is often too much of a focus on death. Of course, you got to focus on, death from COVID-19, but acting like that is the only bad outcome from COVID-19 is just ignoring reality. There can be damage to your heart, lungs, brain. And we're talking long-term impacts here. Heart imaging tests taken months after recovery from COVID-19 have shown lasting damage to the heart muscle, even in people who experienced only mild COVID-19 symptoms. This may increase the risk of heart failure or other heart complications in the future. Lungs. The type of pneumonia often associated with COVID-19 can cause long-standing damage to the tiny air sacs in the lungs. The resulting scar tissue can lead to long-term breathing problems. And the brain, even in young people, COVID-19 can cause strokes, seizures, and Guillain-Barré syndrome. I'm sure I butchered that name. A condition that causes temporary paralysis. COVID-19 may also increase the risk of developing Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease. So, yeah, death isn't the only worry with COVID-19, obviously. A little more here that I want to quote. But McGowan, the former CDC chief of staff, said that Alexander was effective at delaying the famed morbidity and mortality weekly reports and watering down guidance that came from his agency. Quote, he absolutely put pressure on the CDC on different guidance documents on MMWRs, McGowan said. He wanted to change MMWRs that were already posted, which is just outrageous. Campbell added that when the crisis began earlier this year, she was confident the CDC was prepared because it had the best scientists in the world at its disposal. Quote, what was so different, though, was the political involvement, not only from HHS, but then the White House ultimately, that in so many ways hampered what our scientists were able to do, she explained. So, it's not just about high-profile members of the Trump administration. It's also about who is working under those people, like this former HHS science advisor, which apparently enabled the administration to not take the pandemic as seriously as maybe they would have because they were getting advice from this idiot that was telling them that herd immunity is exactly the way to deal with this. And you wonder why numbers turned out like this.